What's up, true believers? Welcome to Greg's Comic Book Club, issue number 5. I'm, of course, Greg, and this is my guest, Gene Yang.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Gene, I'm so happy we got you back.
I am excited to be here.
Because we got to get on the Gene train early on in the days. You came by December 2015 to the spare bedroom of Kind of Funny.
That's right. And you turn that spare bedroom into a starship. I feel like I walked into a starship here.
It's a bit more technologically advanced than it was with Kevin literally 1 feet away from us. We could reach out and touch him before. No, you came by back then to talk about Superman because you were writing a little book called Superman.
I did 10 issues on the Superman title right before they killed him off.
Right? Yeah. They said
I got off the train.
You perfected New 52 Superman. They're like, nobody else can do it.
I'm pretty sure that's not what they said.
But no, you did such great work. They gave you your own book.
I got my own book. It's been a lot of fun.
New Superman.
It's called New Superman, and I have to say that was not my idea. It's a Chinese Superman. It was not my idea.
Yeah.
Rumor is that it was Jim Lee's idea.
Oh, okay.
And they called me up and they asked. They pitched it to me. They're like,
really?
How would you feel?
Save it, because I want to talk. We got to talk about everything that's happened. It's been a crazy 3 years since we hung out. Instead, I'll tell you, of course, this is Greg's Comic Book Club. Issue number 5, as I already said. If you didn't know, Greg's Comic Book Club is a production of patreon.com/kindoffunny. You were talking about before how many shows I do and how we do it, right?
Yeah.
The other shows, I do them daily, weekly. I've been doing them for years. I have the intros, outros, memorized. It's autopilot. Never made one for this. So I'm still, it's at
so
issue
you're still
5.
figuring it out.
Because, of course, this is a patreon.com/kindoffunny exclusive show. For just $1, you get this. It goes up nowhere else. Of course, we did share issue 1 on Free Comic Book Day because I thought that'd be cute, and I'll probably do that going forward. So I never really, packaged them correctly in case you just wandered in and didn't know. So I'm trying to be clear. What's up? This is a Patreon exclusive show. Please support us on patreon.com/kindoffunny. We'll be reading, of course, thoughts, reviews, opinions, things we should be reading from the audience. That, of course, is a special tier over on patreon.com/kindoffunny. So just $1 gets you access to the show. You go up to 15, you get to ask questions. Of course, you get Game Over Greggy Show early access, the pre-show, the post-show, any seasonal content we put up. Apparently, Tim says he's close to one. He says he's putting up one soon. Maybe it's already all filmed. I don't know what his problem is. You know how Tim is. He does all this stuff. So
$1 an issue, that's a deal.
Right? Yeah.
It's like
it's
the 80s again.
It's the thing about the dollar, right? Is that people always say, even when I say 15 to get your question, that seems like a lot for a question. I'm like, well, it's also 4 weeks of exclusive content and early access and all this stuff. Right? The dollar, it gets you this, but it gets you a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah. It's not just the dollar for the show. Right, Kevin? Yeah. That's what I like to see, Kevin. Thanks, Big Kev Dog. Go eat your lunch now, all right? Get some rest over there. We work them too hard. So, Gene, what's happened? You came over to my house, of course, because somebody has said, I forget who, who introduced us kind of? I think it was like Babs Tarr said something about you being local or something like that.
Yeah.
And I reached out and you were writing Superman, and that was great. And you came in and then you're like, I also wrote this thing, Secret Coders. I was like, wait, what? And I had it on my bookshelf, hadn't put it all together. And I really felt like that Superman, that new 52 Superman you were doing really was like am I wrong to say your first big moment for DC or for
it was the very first time I worked for one of the big two.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the very first time I worked on a book that I had read when I was a kid.
Yeah, okay, cool. And so what happens from there? I haven't seen you really and talk to you.
So I think I came and I talked to you. Some of that Greg magic rubbed off on me.
Yeah, right.
And then a few months after that, I think I got this call and I was named the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature by the Library of Congress for 2 years, for 2016 and 2017. Nice. So what that's about is the Library of Congress is trying to promote reading. So I got to travel all around the country giving talks about reading and promoting books, promoting comics, all sorts of books, but especially graphic novels and comics because that's the world I came from. Yeah. And then towards the end of 2016, I got a call from the MacArthur Foundation and I was named one of the recipients of the MacArthur Grant, which was nuts. That was it was crazy. It was crazy. So I'm the third cartoonist to have gotten that.
And what does that entail? What is the MacArthur Grant?
So so it's this foundation that's supposed to promote creativity in all these different fields of human endeavor, right? And recently they've started noticing comics. So Alison Bechtel got one, Ben Cattrall got one, and then I'm the third one.
Okay.
And they basically give you a big chunk of money.
Okay.
Just to make stuff. Chunk of money Just period. Like no strings
no
attached.
strings attached. Just, hey,
you
you're
don't
doing
even have
this.
to go to like a ceremony to get it or anything.
wow,
They just
okay.
give it to you. They call like it was crazy. They called me up one morning. It was a number from Chicago. I wasn't gonna pick it up because I didn't recognize it.
Isn't that the worst?
And then I picked it up.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I did it, but I picked it up and they told me they were gonna give me this big
Not
chunk
too
of money.
shabby. All right.
It was
all
crazy.
right.
It was
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, but the larger point of that is that I think comic books and graphic novels are finally like catching on. You know, they're sort of they're finding their place of recognition in
All
the
it
wider
took was
world.
22 movies shoved down the mainstream audience's
Yeah,
mouth.
that's
for them to be
that's a
like,
big
"Maybe
part of
some
it.
these
That's a big part of it.
comics."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and a Pulitzer Prize for Mouse and all sorts of.
So when you're 2015 for your comics section of it, you're writing Superman at the time.
Yes.
I tried to pin you down. I said, "How long are you going to do this? What happens after when they bring it back?
Yeah.
All the powers." You're like, I can't answer those questions. And
So
then
it
it
was-
seems shortly thereafter.
Yes, shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter, DC rebooted.
Okay.
I mean, so I can talk about some of this now.
Sure, you
now
can.
that it's in retrospect.
Sure, give me the inside.
But
What's Jim Lee smell like?
But when
I'm kidding. I've smelled them.
He smells like roses and genius.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what he smells like.
You want to know one of my biggest regrets?
What's that?
So years and years ago, when I was still at IGN, I went and hosted a video about DC Universe Online at Comic-Con. And so I was running around filming all stuff. And I knew Jim already at that point. But I jokingly waited in line for a little bit for the gimmick, got up there, and then had him, he was doing sketches. I'm like, all right, give me a headshot. And I was like, do it on my arm. And he gave me Wonder Woman on my arm. And I was like, even though I'm a bigger Superman fan, I should have gotten that tattooed. Like, that was so stupid. Why didn't I leave there and get that tattooed? That would have been awesome. I digress. Sorry. Shortly thereafter.
I feel you on that. Jim Lee has this aura about him. He's had it ever since the beginning of his career. One of my brother, I have a younger brother, he's 4 years younger than me, and one of our greatest childhood memories was going to a comic book convention. And this didn't even happen to me, this happened to him.
Yeah, but you're going to tell it like it's touched
it's still
you.
one of my favorite memories. So we waited in line to get Jim Lee autographs.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, my brother went to the bathroom, and he got to pee right next to Jim Lee.
Yeah.
Right next to him.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't talk to him because he was too intimidated. He was like in 5th grade.
Yeah.
And we still talk about that. We're
It's-
like,
for
we're
me-
like 40 years old. And we're still
For me,
talking about that.
what's so crazy about Jim is that he's just the most down to earth dude.
Yes.
And like to the point of like, I remember the first time I ever met him was DC Universe Online. He gave me a suit. He was sit down. You can interview him because they had nothing to show for this game for the first like 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was like he sat down and did me a Superman headshot while I did it. And as soon as we sat down, he's like, "All right, cool, I'm McGregor." And I just go, "So tell him." And I started the recorder. I'm like, "So tell me, is this game gonna suck?" And he was already drawing. He goes, "Wait, what? No, what? What the game?" And it was like from there on, like he's that guy, like who just he'll just I'll be going through my Instagram and he commented on one of my posts. Okay, great. I'm like, well, you're Jim Lee. Why are you
no joke.
talking to me on Instagram?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. The fact that he combines his godlike drawing powers with a human persona.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
pretty amazing.
Mild manner artist.
Yeah, but in any case, when I came into DC Comics, I think the company was in a really weird spot. I think sales were kind of weird. I think they had sort of, I should say we now since I'm part of them. We had sort of lost.
The mojo.
A little bit, or sort of lost the path, right? Lost the path. So
I think that was
the mandate that I got when I came in was that they wanted to change Superman up.
Okay.
So Greg Pak was doing Action Comics at the time with Aaron Kuder, who they're both amazing.
Yeah.
And then Pete Tomasi was doing Superman Wonder Woman. So we all got together. We had this long meeting, and we didn't want to change him up. We also wanted to keep his core. We felt like if we changed the surface stuff and kept the core, it would make the core shine a little bit brighter, right? So that was the idea. But even so, I felt like it was just a weird time. I now that I've been with DC for a little bit longer, I can see that DC before Rebirth and after Rebirth was kind of night and day.
Yeah.
You can feel it,
Oh my
right?
God,
I feel like I could feel it as somebody working for them, and I feel like as a fan, you could totally feel it in the books.
As a fan, I remember when they dropped that first image of the Rebirth lineup and everybody flying, and the big thing we all were like, they're smiling. Right, because it was the New 52 toyed with ideas and did all this cool stuff, but it was like it kind of had the hangover of what was happening in the cinematic universe, where it was a darker thing, and like Superman wasn't Superman, and it's always that thing of I'm always down for you to experiment with the characters and do different stuff, but you go a few years with it and you're like, all right, cool, where is it? And to have him come back out and have that like classic suit, and let alone be the fact that they were bringing back my Superman, our Superman, right? Of like,
That's right. And I think the way they did that was pretty clever too. I remember the moment that I realized that DC was different was I got called into their New Burbank offices. Yeah. And Jeff Johns was there, which for a fanboy was also a big deal. That dude, I think he's like a month older than me. And he doesn't look older than me. He doesn't look older than me. Yeah, but he feels like he's about a decade wiser than me. So we sat down, and he was sort of masterminding Weed Bro. So he had meetings with every creative team, and we sat down. And his first question to me was, "What's the story going to be about? What's
so this
the
is
story?
new
What's
Superman.
The core of the story? Yeah, for new Superman.
Well, don't get me there yet.
It was like,
don't get me there yet.
Okay.
So you're doing your run on Superman, which is the Clark Superman, which is New 52 Superman powered down thing.
Yes.
How deep into that are you going before they start talking to you about New Superman?
It was towards the very end.
Okay.
It was towards the very end before we started talking about New Superman. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that you said they pitched it to you.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never followed up on this story. They
pitched it to me. It was not my idea to do a Chinese Superman, and they pitched it to me, and I turned them down because I just thought it was a stupid idea.
Too on the nose.
Ridiculous. I thought, so I think that was some of my personal stuff too. So my both my parents are immigrants. My mom was born in mainland China, and her family left mainland China. She was a baby at the time. They left mainland China just as the communist government was coming into power. Okay. And they left because my grandfather had worked for the government before. So I grew up with some really intense political views about China, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, Superman is supposed to be about truth, justice, in the American way. What does that mean in China? It's not a Chinese American Superman, it's a Chinese Superman. And I was a little freaked out about it. So I kept turning them down. And then I went into for that for me. This was actually this was maybe it was the same meeting. Maybe it must have been the same trip as when I hung out with Jeff Johns, right? So it's solidified for me in Jim Lee's office.
You're doing fine. I'm just rotating. You're talking towards me. I want to make sure. Kevin's eating over there. I can't.
Yeah. So it was in Jim Lee's office. He called me and he told me it was his idea. He wanted a Asian character in the Superman family.
Yeah.
Because of course he's a Korean American. Representation issues have always been important to him. And then we had this long talk. I don't remember anything else he said because I was staring at his face.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm talking to Jim Lee. He's not even peeing.
I cannot wait till I tell my little brother about this. Right? And at the end, I came out of that office thinking I'm going to do it. And then the meeting with Jeff Johns solidified it.
Yeah. Okay. So how long does it take you to get the basis of the idea? Like, are you in the car as soon as you leave that meeting, like starting to find the character?
I mean, I feel like during that time in that office, like I could hear the character talking to me. He was kind of a jerk, you know, and I feel like some of that came out of reading old Superman comics. Then if you read comics from the 30s and early 40s, Superman's kind of a
he's
a dickhead.
He's a dick. Yeah, totally. Fuck pussy bitch. It's fine. Say whatever you want. It's cool. We're fine. All right. You're on Patreon. No, you're 100% right. Yeah. Even I, with Action 1000 just dropping, I'm gonna buy everything. So I bought the Action 1000 80 Years of Superman thing. And like, there's so many classic things, and you read it, and he's just like, wow. He's like, Clark's so spineless, and Superman's like, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Cool.
That's right. The difference between the two characters was really stark in the beginning, right? It was kind of crazy. So, during that conversation with Jeff Johns, the way he described it was, he said, okay, so this Chinese Superman, his character arc is basically going to be from, golden age American Superman to modern day American Superman.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. That's what we were going for.
Okay.
With this new character.
So for a lot of people, I'm sure haven't read it, give them the pitch. What is who is the character? What's the pitch of it?
So his name is Kenan Kong, or I guess, the way it's spelled, if he were to move to America, it would be pronounced Keenan.
Oh, thank God. This is why I didn't want to say it, because I read it and I say Keenan, but I'm always like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. No, because
I'm an idiot.
I think my hope is that he'll eventually join some sort of international team. At that point, they're going to start pronouncing him Keenan. In any case, Kenan Kong is a 17-year-old kid. He's growing up in Shanghai. He sort of inherits some of Clark Kent's powers, and he becomes the new Superman. Yeah.
When I started reading the book, I was not prepared for what it was. Okay. When it gets announced, it's you and it's Superman, I'm in, you know what I mean? And to jump in and find that, he wasn't I have this moral core and I'm doing, and you jump in, it's like, wow, he was an asshole and continues on for quite a while of like, especially when he starts, he meets their version of Batman and their one, and like where you are now, obviously with your own Justice League of China and stuff like that. The way he interacts with people, the way he talks, and the way that the powers he got weren't like given to him because he was so righteous, and that's what I thought.
Yeah. He's sort of he's the opposite of what Superman ought to be, especially in the beginning. He's a bully. He's selfish. He only thinks about what's good for him,
Yeah.
not good for the world.
And I'm such a huge fan of that. And it happens pretty much in every issue. The way you guys do your lettering, where you'll have all the text and then like a word will be in blue or some other color or whatever. And there'll be a box being like, hey, that word is in English. All the rest is in Mandarin. You know what I mean? Of like, and it's like such a little tip of the hat to immersion of like, to remind me again that I'm not in Metropolis. I'm not dealing with something I'm an outsider reading this. And that's awesome to wrap my head around.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, but part of that is that if you listen to, especially modern Chinese people talk,
sure,
there is a lot of English sprinkled in just because of the pervasiveness of American pop culture,
slang and stuff like that.
Right? Yeah. And we wanted to find a more naturalistic way of doing that besides just using the pointy brackets. And Hope Larson did something similar too. In her first Batgirl storyline, she had Batgirl go to Japan.
Yep.
And they did something very similar.
Yeah, but it's just such a great look of how to do that. And then even reading it, when you start into it, I was very much like, how long can they keep this isolated? You know what I mean? In a way of like, he's Superman, here's the Batman, here's this, and it was just like, well, but I know these characters exist on the other side of the world, and I know that they're pervasive and everyone knows them everywhere. And the way you guys have kept it, had the crossovers, have Lex show up, have Keenan deal with Superman and stuff like that. It's been fascinating to see it continue. To see you do now. There's like the Green Lantern Corps of like over there. It's just like, it's awesome that I feel like you have been able to, hey, we're part of the DC universe, but we're not.
Yeah, that I am so thankful that they were, happy to let me do that. I'm so thankful that I felt like I got my own little corner of the DC sandbox to play in.
100%.
Yeah.
And
been a lot of fun.
do they continue to foster that in you? Like, I mean, are they talking?
Yeah, sure. Well, okay. So originally DC was going to end New Superman at issue 18, and then the trade sales were a lot stronger than they thought they were going to be. I don't know about a lot. They were stronger. They were stronger than they were going to be.
They were a lot stronger. It was great.
So they gave us 6 more issues. One of those issues was written by one of my faves, Mariko Tamaki, who's a friend, and she also writes Hulk and She-Hulk for Marvel. She does Supergirl being super for DC Comics.
Another great trade everybody should read.
Yeah, that's a great
It was a great
trade.
one of like, hey, here's some.
It's amazing.
I love that comics are great now where it's just like,
just
here's this thing. Go do whatever you want with it. We've heard the story a million times. What would you do with it right now?
She did a great job on that.
If you're an audio listener, I'm showing you brought this. This is you said your books.
This is my offering.
I'm gonna go in and open them up so I can start. I thought as you were talking, I'm like, I probably should show your books, seeing as how you said you brought them. Ooh, you brought me a shirt too.
I did, so I can make you like a white version of the Chinese Superman.
All right, it doesn't always have to be a race. Look at that. This is awesome. Yeah, I hadn't seen these floating around yet.
Well, it's because I made it by hand.
They're not.
I made it by hand.
Okay, good. Then I like that. No, trust me. As somebody who used to work at IGN and they wouldn't make the shirts I wanted, and I started making them, I totally feel that. This is awesome. No, this is great, dude. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
No, please, thank you for coming.
So and then we got 5 more issues. So the issue number 24, which will be out this month, will be the last one. Yeah.
Okay. Can you say what you move on to next? What happens to you next?
Yeah. So right now, DC is starting a brand new middle grade YA initiative. So there are 2 imprints.
Right.
Zoom is for middle grade readers, and then what do they call it? They call it DC Inc. for YA. So I'm doing something for Zoom. That's my next project.
That's all you can say?
No, I can say more. They announced it.
Okay.
It's called Superman Smashes the Klan. So it's about Superman versus the KKK.
Oh my God, this sounds awesome.
It's actually are you a fan of the old radio show?
Yeah.
You know the old radio show?
Yeah, totally.
So there's a storyline in the old radio show from 1946.
I'm putting on your shirt.
Where Superman, awesome.
Audio listeners, I'm shirtless right now. Go to the 19-minute mark on the YouTube video.
This is amazing. I never thought I would be next to shirtless Greg.
You clearly don't watch enough of our content. I think it's more of a thing. I went to Kind of Funny and I didn't see.
We're shirt twinsies.
Look at that. There it is. That's how we're talking about it. Okay, sorry. So yeah.
So 1946.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1946. Superman takes on the Ku Klux Klan in a 16-part series in the Superman radio show. It's right after World War II ends. So World War II ends. A lot of non-white GIs, especially African-American GIs, start making some noise about getting the same sort of benefits. So the Ku Klux Klan up to that point had actually kind of collapsed. And they tried to come back.
Okay.
In 1946, they had this big ceremony on Stone Mountain, I think. And then like a few months later, Superman does this, the Superman radio show. They were debating it because it was a big risk.
Of course.
Because in certain parts of the country, the Ku Klux Klan was seen as a community group. And they decided just to go for it. So they had a 16-part series where he took on the Ku Klux Klan, and people point to that as the moment in which the publicity around the KKK kind of fell apart.
Yeah, that's kind of when they become the joke, right?
Yes. Yeah, so that storyline has never been presented in comics. You know, and I feel like Superman's a comic book character.
Yeah.
And that's one of his most important storylines that ought to be in comics. So that's what we're doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're sort of doing a remake. We're taking the bones of that storyline. We're keeping the setting, so it's being set in 1946.
Okay.
And we're redoing it as comics.
So I've heard about the initiative, right? We need to talk. You can talk right now, actually. Where do you go? Where is the definitive place for comic book news? Like, where do you go to keep up on all this? Because if I miss a tweet from someone, like, I didn't even realize. Hold on, I'll give a shout out right now because it's something I discovered at the back of one of my books and tweeted about it. But of course, Kala. I'm always afraid it's Kayla, but Kala is how it's spelled, so we're gonna say Kala.
Okay.
She put on Patreon today of what she's looking forward to. She says, looking forward to in June, 4 words: Plastic Man, Gail Simone.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't believe I missed that announcement somewhere, that I didn't see it until I saw it in the back of an issue. So
yeah, okay. So I'll tell you, I go to icv2.com.
Okay.
And I also go to Comics Beat. I think those are the two I check the most.
icv2.com. I'm going to it right now so I don't forget about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's sort of anything that sells in a comic book store.
Okay.
Like including card games and like you'd be into that site.
Obviously.
I'm pretty sure.
So with the initiative here, because it's young adult, but what did you're calling it the what?
It's DC Zoom. It's called DC Zoom. Young adult and middle grade.
Middle grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are these comics that are just going to be on the shelf? Are they collected editions? What am I?
They are. I think they're experimenting with a few different formats.
Okay.
I think most of them are going to be in graphic novel format. You know Raina Telgemeier stuff? You know, there's a book called Smile.
Yeah, I know Smile. Okay, I don't know.
Okay, it's going to be kind of like that. It's going to be kind of that format.
Okay.
That's that trim size. The book that I'm doing for them will be released in 3 volumes. And we're aiming to, and then collected, and we're aiming for the initial 3 volumes to be in the same format as the Avatar comics that I did for Dark Horse.
Oh, right. Yeah. A lot of people are still. First off, I want you to know, I know you're big timing out there. You're winning awards. You're being ambassadors. You're getting money for no reason. When I announced you were coming on the show, so many people freaked out that they loved you from when you did the 2015 stuff. And then a lot of them were talking about the Avatar stuff. So you still have quite a following in the Kind of Funny community.
Yeah. Well, the Avatar comics are continuing to go. So, I wrote 5 volumes of them, and then Faith Erin Hicks picked up the baton.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah,
She's
I've read
amazing.
her work before.
Yeah, her stuff hasn't come out yet. Her Avatar stuff. But
Okay.
I can't wait. As a fan, I can't wait.
I want to jump into a question for you. I'm all over. We're just calling it's just the Gene segment at the top of this because we do what we want. Jay wrote in, of course, like you can if you go to patreon.com/kindafunny and support us at the level to ask questions. Says, as an immigrant to the U.S., parentheses, born in the Philippines, moved to Union City when I was 2. I had my fair share of experiences feeling lesser than. I connected with New Superman and Coming to America in that regard when Lex Luthor interacts with the Justice League of China. Was this intentional or just a byproduct of my own experiences? I know you explore this in American-born Chinese, but I wanted to know your motivation.
Yeah, I mean, I think most authors, we write out of who we are, right? So I'm a Chinese American, I'm an Asian American, I lived an Asian American life, and I think those pieces of my past kind of make their way into my comics, even if I don't necessarily
You're not like specifically going
want
for
them
it?
to, right? They'll make it. They'll make their way in. For the storyline that Jay, is that his name?
Yeah, Jay.
That Jay is asking about. I think it's in issues 9 and 10 by the amazing Victor Bogdanovic, who's killing it on the Silencer right now. In any case, we had Kenan come to the U.S. for the first time, interact with Lex Luthor, and we did talk about that. I talked about that with the editors about how those interactions should be, and we wanted to be a little bit paternalistic and then also a little bit skeevy, but we wanted to
the Lex way,
yes,
or at least
Lex
this
way.
hero Lex way.
Yeah, but he also Kenan also meets Superman, and I feel like those two interactions together, his interaction with Superman and his interaction with Lex, kind of show the different ways in which the relationship between East and West can play out. Right. One is a little bit gross, and the other one doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah. Another thing for me, I think of the reason I like New Superman so much is that I think we talked about this before, obviously, and I've talked to you guys about it before on the show a million times. You know how much I love Superboy, Con-El, and Keenan for me is so that in a new skin, right? Of like learning how to deal with these powers, learning how to be a better man in general, let alone a superhero and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even Connell, I think he definitely followed that golden age Superman to modern day Superman.
Yeah.
Character arc.
Trying to find his own footing.
Yeah, that's right.
Luca writes in for a question with you. Says, so I've been reading New Superman to prepare for this episode and have been really loving it. It's reminded me of how great it is to read stories based on other cultures. Which brings me to my question. How do you think the comics industry is currently doing regarding inclusion and diversity, and what further steps could they take?
Well, first, thank you. Thank you so much for reading it. Glad you are liking the book. I think, I grew up in the 80s, and compared to the 80s, it's a totally different world now, right? It's a totally different world. I'm not saying that things are perfect.
We solved racism, everybody.
Right here in comics. In comics,
that was where we did it.
That's right. But I think you have to be able to point to the progress that's been made, right?
Yeah.
I think as America grows more diverse, there is this growing demand for our comics, especially our superhero comics, to reflect that.
Sure.
And in some ways, I think that's because superheroes are like they're quintessentially American in a certain way. I say this as somebody who's writing the Chinese Superman comic, but I do think there's something quintessentially American about the superhero genre. It was invented here. It's almost like jazz. It's like the comics version of jazz. It was invented here. It was most popular in America, at least until very recently. And superheroes kind of came of age as America was coming of age as a global superpower. So superheroes at their best express America.
And so many of their themes, right, are reflected by the writers who at the time were immigrants who were trying, you know what I mean? Like, that's why you see it so inherently there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think the immigrant story is just baked into what superheroes are.
And that's why it's always so laughable when you see somebody like, keep your politics out of my comics. My comics have always been political. That's the point of it. What are you talking about, right?
That's really true. That's really true. So I do think that a lot of the reason why we're seeing this push for representation is because everybody wants to see anybody can be an American.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter who you are, you can be an American. In the same way, anybody can be a superhero.
I mean, we'll get to it because I want to talk about Man of Steel #1. That's the best thing I've been reading this month. But even in that book, right, like the way that Bendis is using different characters in there and like introducing and already making and like little things of like, here's the new woman who's in charge of the firefight. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And I don't mean it from, oh, that's awesome, there's a woman. I just mean, oh, awesome. It's not just Maggie Sawyer or whatever. You're introducing someone, we're putting a woman into a position of power and not making it weird and not, you know what I mean? They do so much great stuff.
Which is sort of reflecting where how the world is changing as well.
100%.
Yeah.
So Gene.
Yes.
You're on Greg's Comic Book Club. Stop pimping your own wares, of course. New Superman, available everywhere. About to end, so you could buy the whole run very soon.
Yes, you can.
What's the best thing you've read recently? We start with the best thing you've read this month, and I found that puts people too on the spot. They freak out.
Okay, so I am doing an event in San Francisco this Wednesday with Mariko Tamaki.
Okay.
Because she's launching the trade paperback version of Supergirl Being Super, which we talked about.
Yeah.
So I read that to prep for that event, and that was amazing.
Yeah,
I thought it was amazing.
Give him the pitch.
Yeah, Joelle Jones does an amazing job with the artwork. It's almost like a Supergirl year one. Yeah. Almost like she already has her powers at the beginning, but she's still trying to figure out her place in the world. It's about her when she's in high school, and I think that the thing that impressed me the most about it is that the team is able to capture what it feels like to be in high school. It just feels so authentic. You know, as somebody who taught high school for a really long time, that felt really, really authentic to me.
Well, that would be the biggest thing about it, I think, is what a lot of people struggle with Supergirl too, right? Is that you can't make Supergirl, in terms of her monthly ongoing, too similar to Superman in terms of exact same this and exact same that. And you've seen different struggles with it since New 52, right? Of the Kara they brought was going to be the more alien. She was going to be the more Kryptonian. And I feel like that was a struggle. She was super angry. It wasn't a fun thing to read. Yeah. And then when they did Rebirth, it was very much like the show of like, cool, she's in National City, she's staying with the DEO agents who have been her parents for a little bit, and like that was funner and brighter and more in line with the show, which was interesting. But again, part of me just wants her to be in Smallville, right, and have Ma and Pa or whatever. So the way they did with, especially for me jumping in of, one day on a Wednesday, I went to my books from DC and it was there, and I was like, okay, what is this? And jumping in and waiting for the kicker and waiting for her to mention Clark or Cal or whatever, and then it never coming and it being like, oh, like this is, like you're saying, it is her year one. Like we've done, we did Green Lantern year one as required reading a couple shows ago, and it's the exact same idea of cool, jump in here, it's all self-contained. You don't have to worry about the crossovers. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that too.
100%.
It's a one and done sort of
Exactly.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
But you're talking about, I think, rings true of jumping in there, and it is her relationships with her friends. It is her having a pimple. It is her strained relationship with her adoptive parents, strained relationship with teachers, and also then trying to figure out what is going on inside her. And did she, did her powers lead to this catastrophe in town and stuff like that?
Yeah, I especially appreciated the way the friendships were structured.
Sure.
Those felt very real to me. They when you're at that age, friendships are everything.
Yeah.
And they were able to capture that.
Yeah, 100%. And her depression, her anger, her hurt over everything that's happening in there. Yeah, you definitely.
Yeah, and it was still a little bit even though it was about depression, it was still bright. Right?
Oh yeah,
it was still
yeah.
hopeful. There was still a thread of hope all the way through.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was a great book. I didn't realize. What's the event on Wednesday?
It's at the Bindery. It's
the
at the
Bindery?
Bindery. It's a bookstore.
Okay.
On Haight Street.
Okay.
And at 7:30, Mariko and I are just going to be interviewing each other. It's
nice.
mostly going to be me interviewing her about her book. Yeah.
Cool. Well, find a way to talk about your book.
I will.
Steal the thunder. What are you talking about? You're an award winner. You got all this money and stuff. So the best thing I read this month was Man of Steel 1, which I
have not yet read.
I won't spoil it too much for you.
Okay.
Too much. But so here's a question I have for you, actually. So after, when you came on, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking about your history with Superman, you talked about like one of the first books you ever got.
Yeah,
right?
the first one.
Off the rack was Superman,
Was
right?
Superman, yeah.
When you come in, you get to write them for 10 issues and then move on to new Superman, of course. Does that change your relationship with Clark and Superman and who he is?
I feel like I had to think more deeply about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to I read a bunch of books about him. I read the unauthorized biography of Superman just to get a picture of. He's been around for so long. There are very few characters that are in the public eye for that long.
Right.
You know? And he's had all these different eras. I felt like I had to understand all of that.
Okay.
And I think if anything, I just got a deeper appreciation for why he's lasted this long.
So when you finish your run, you don't have to disconnect. Is it hard? Is it a passing of a baton? Is it that you want to take some time away from him, to get your head in your own space for whatever you're working on now?
Well, no. I mean, I'm still working in his world.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
New Superman is in his world in a lot of ways. The Ken Kong character is sort of a reflection or a commentary on or a response to Clark Kent, right?
Yeah.
And then with the middle grade book that I'm working on now too, that's going deep into Superman's history. So I still feel very connected to the character, and I am looking forward to what. I'm a Bendis fan.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to what he does.
You're a comic book writer. I don't know if anybody knows that. You write comic books. What did you think when you were flipping through pages and you find that double spread of Bendis is coming?
I mean, they did that for Kirby too. It kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense because it's a huge jumping of the ships, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay,
I get it.
Cool. I didn't know if that was you roll your eyes at it. You're like, all right, that's cool. Yeah, because I thought it was cool, but it is no pressure. No pressure on this coming in on this.
I know, but it sounds like he landed, right?
Dude, Man of Steel 1. So we're going to talk about it eventually, and I briefly mentioned out there. This is always the weird thing about bringing a guest on the show, is I want to talk to them about everything, but then I don't want to talk because I got to record it anyway. And I don't want, but I was like, I'm writing my own Superman comic this year. Blah, blah, blah. And
yeah, that's awesome.
It stemmed from, I wanted my version of Superman to be represented on the page. And who is he's more Clark than Cal. You know what I mean? And that's what I want it to be. He's more American than Krypton, or more human Earth than Kryptonian. And I read this Bendis book. I'm like, fuck, he beat me to it. You know what I mean? He's already in I don't want to spoil. Do you care? Can we? We usually just spoil stuff. And I obviously buy this book. I think it's great. And I can't, as of recording, and when this goes live, it'll be Wednesday. It'll be issue 2. I'm very excited. What I love about it is that it's driving home the fact that, Superman is very much a human being. He is very much a person. Mm-hmm. And there's this awesome thing in there of him trying to hone in with his super hearing, which I think I talked about maybe in my pitch, even in not this exact thing, but dealing with super hearing, of him honing in on it. And he hears a song. And he's trying to find this thing, but he's like, what is the name of that song? And he keeps going back to, that's going to drive me crazy. And then he's on, and it's such a small little, here's a human moment you've had. And I feel like that's what so many people miss in their Superman stories, of trying to give him any shred or ounce of humanity and a real thing you can relate to, where you can totally relate to them. But then there are these amazing things of, it's Firefly and Killer Moth, and they're in Metropolis, and like, you know, he shows up, or Killer Moth shows up, and he's just like, yeah, do this one, and he's like saying all the like trite bad guy stuff, like, where's the money?
Yeah.
And Firefly's like, dude, he listens for stuff like that. You can't say that. And like, sure enough, Superman shows up, and
That's
it's like,
great.
there's so many interesting takes of what a grounded Superman should be like in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like him having this little exchange with the firefighter is so great. And the biggest compliment I think I can pay to it is the cliffhanger of like, all right, cool, you set up this really cool world. I like where Superman's at, but just like Action 1000, when like it was like, wait, where is this and where are we picking up? And like, you know, they're talking about shaking things up, and like Lois wasn't working at the planet anymore, but they weren't telling you why. We get more of a tease of that, but then what looks to be the cliffhanger of like how it happened, or what's going on, or what it means for Jonathan and Lois. And it's like, it's not rare, but I mean, in terms
that dude is good at that, right?
yeah, exactly. In terms of a
Bendis is really good at
Superman
that.
comic where I'm like, I
Yeah.
really can't wait to see what happens next. It's
Yeah,
like, oh man,
that's
that's
great.
awesome.
That's great. Yeah.
So like,
and I think I think superheroing doesn't get its due, right? That's a kind of a crazy thing that you can hear everybody's
sure.
almost everybody's thoughts.
yeah.
Almost.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and the control it requires to
Yeah,
take to hone in and
exactly.
stuff. And yeah, like that's such a good bit, and it's awesome to see him use the fantastical elements of that, and then have the next thing, have Superman have a very grounded conversation with this new firefighter captain, or whatever her title is, and stuff like
Well, I
that.
can't wait to read it.
Dude, you got to get
Can't
on
wait
it.
to
It's
read
great.
it. Yeah.
Anything else you've read on your pull list from recently that stands out?
So Mr. Miracle.
Oh,
Mr. Miracle, I think,
God.
is amazing.
Oh my God,
It's
Tom
amazing.
King's
I think
killing
it's-
it.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Dark Side
it's
is.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that book. I love
Yeah.
that book. Everything about that book, I think, is perfection.
Yeah.
For
No,
writing,
totally.
art, everything about it.
It's probably the one book every month that when I finish, I will tell my wife about.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
yeah.
hey, like I just read this thing, and I know you don't really like, you care, but you don't
Yeah.
like, but like the most recent one of Mr. Miracle and Barda switching
switching back
off
and forth.
between
Oh my
who's
gosh,
like
it was
fighting
so
and who's taking
real,
care of the
right?
kid. Yeah.
It was so real.
And that's what's so brilliant
Yeah.
about that book, is that it just juggles what superheroing is with real life and how that actually would play out. It's awesome.
Yeah, and even the little moment where he meets that the little version of those creatures, those apocalyptic creatures. I don't remember what they're called. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah.
And he's like, they come in babies.
Yeah,
They're babies.
yeah,
and it was such like there's so many weird emotions over that.
Yeah.
You know, like he's taking care of a baby at home, and then it's just so that sort of sent chills down my spine.
Sure.
when I read that.
Yeah.
It was
No,
great. It was great.
The way you'd think that for Tom King, right? Like, all right, cool. I get what you are, and I know like books will kind of feel the same or something. The way that Mr. Miracle doesn't feel like Batman, doesn't feel like Swamp Thing. It's just
exactly.
like the depth he has to go in there and do it, because I'm still totally enraptured in love with the Batman Catwoman lead up to the wedding. Like that's just been so well done.
Okay, I haven't caught up on that.
Dude, I won't even bother, because I feel like every last issue of the Comic Book Club was very much like
About that.
Tom King's so good.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's so good.
He's amazing.
And I thought the payoff to what they had done with Booster Gold and everything was great, but I'll stop there. The other big thing that I was definitely psyched for and talking a lot about was Free Comic Book Day, Amazing Spider-Man, Ryan Ottley finally coming on to do the art for Spider-Man. Finally, whatever. But Nick Spencer writing, Ryan Ottley drawing, and man, it's exactly what I would want from a Ryan Ottley Spider-Man book. Like the art's amazing. I thought this panel stuff in particular here, where if you've read it or whatever, it's the Spider-Man page where he's like, come on, Spider-Man, you can do this. And it's like such a great Peter Parker in his head moment of trying to stop something from happening and getting in. Yeah, the art's amazing, popping out. And I want to bring up some comments here. Of course, obviously, you write in to patreon.com/kindafunny. You get to talk about the books with us. I've been talking so much about this amazing Spider-Man Free Comic Book Day that a lot of you wrote in with your own reviews. Thank you so much. Magnus writes in and says, just want to pitch in about the Amazing Spider-Man Free Comic Book Day. Not require reading, but this is the pull list. I think it's a fresh breath for Spider-Man that he is not between teenager and grown-up, like the period I found myself in. And I love the art in it. I know that this is not the first time Spider-Man or more Peter Parker has been this old, but I think it gets too little of attention than the other versions of him. Teenage Spidey is the best, of course, and grown up is hit or miss, but we can't just see the same teenage years over and over again. And did I mention the art? Just wow. Yeah, that's the interesting thing of I'm not sure where it's all gonna land. You know, I mean, it's Pete looking for an apartment right now, right, with his friend. Them getting a roommate who is a villain, which is cool. Like, I want to see how that plays out. It's Boomerang in the issue running around, but as somebody who's not up to date on Marvel continuity, especially Spider-Man stuff, outside of like Parker Industries and into this. I'm not sure how that's all going to shake out. I'm waiting for July's Amazing Spider-Man 1 to really get my feet wet on where we are. But I liked it, and I think it is what I want out of Spider-Man in terms of it's just Peter and Spider-Man, you know what I mean, of doing their thing. Because that was trying to read some of Slott's stuff, and especially Parker Industries, which I didn't like. And then last comic book show, we talked about one of our best friends' recommendations for it and where to start. And I jumped in and started reading there, and it was cool of, Peter Parker living on somebody's couch trying to do this, like trying to figure it out. I feel like this is still in continuity. I think it's playing fast and loose with what years it is, but I think he is a younger version than a grown-up smart
cool.
dude.
That's cool. I'm really behind on Spider-Man. The last Spider-Man stuff I read was the Superior Spider-Man stuff, which I thought was
so
awesome.
good. It was so good.
Yeah.
Again,
and it sounded terrible, right? When somebody pitched you that, you're
Doc
like,
Ock and Spider-Man's
that's
body.
ridiculous.
When Tim told me that, I was like, whatever.
It turned out amazing.
But again, that's the power of where we are with comics. Of like, cool. Guess what? Everybody knows the story. Here's what weird idea do you have? Yeah. Go do it. You know what I mean? Go make that be a thing.
It totally worked.
Mario chimed in, though, about Amazing Spider-Man as well and says, I really hope this issue is not an indication of what the actual series will be with Spencer at the helm, as I've been waiting for Slott to finally release the series from his grasp for what feels like the last 40 years. I'm definitely not a fan of Spencer, as I've not enjoyed many of the other series I've read by him. Secret Avengers, Superior Foes, Ant-Man, Cap, and a few other things. I found this issue to be really rough and hard to get through. I hope the dialogue and the tone was dialogue and tone was an attempt at humor and not an homage to the series pre-1990 and the animated series. I haven't had much exposure to Ryan Ottley's artwork, as I have not read any of Invincible. Shame on you. But I did enjoy the art in the first 6 issues of Haunt back in 2009. Either he's radically changed his style or phoned in this issue, as I did not find this art style particularly appealing. It felt like an attempt of combining animated and comic styles that failed to be either. Too loose and not as dynamic as I'd like. I did like the webbing, though. Very much in the same vein of McFarlane's spaghetti webbing introduced in the late 80s.
This doesn't feel phoned into me.
No, I feel like it's...
I would disagree with that particular comment.
It's definitely... I feel like this is Ryan Ottley's style. Tim and I, both joked when I got it, and we're flipping through. It's like, well, Mark Grayson's Spider-Man now. And I'm like, I'm totally fine with that. As somebody who misses Invincible, I am totally fine with that 100%. But yeah, we'll be interested to see how that goes. A few other things I had in my pull list that I want to talk about. All New Wolverine's finally over in terms of Tom Taylor's thing.
Okay.
Great run. I had always been interested in X-23 and seen her here or there and thought she was a cool character and fell in love with Tom Taylor when he did Injustice, when he started that, and that crossed over with us for video games and stuff. Met him and loved him, and then, all right, cool, anything you write, I'm going to buy. And so when he jumped on All New Wolverine, I was like, I really don't know if this will be anything I care about. And, years ago now, jumped on the train, got it, and I was blown away from the start of how he was writing Laura. And I think I hope this is something that gets referenced from here on out with this character in the way that there was a time in the book she said something similar, but Tom said it on Twitter, and then it was like that lens clicks into place of like, like somebody wrote in and was like, blah, 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 and X-23 does this, and how are you? And he wrote back and he's like, heads up, her name's not X-23, it's Laura. Laura Kinney. You know what I mean? Like that's what they called her. Yeah, like this is her. Yeah. And when you read the book with that lens of like, wow, she's a person now. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like Gabby being in it, and the Honey Badger, and all, like the series is amazing, and the way it evolves and the way it goes, and the way I feel, not only book to book, but page to page, it can be super serious and grounded, and then the next page can be Gabby and Deadpool like burning down a building, and you're like, that makes sense, and that's awesome. And for me personally, someone who never had much of a connection to Marvel Universe. You know what I mean? Like growing up, I loved Spider-Man and like McFarlane stuff, but eventually was driven away by Clone Saga and all that jazz.
Yeah. Okay.
Coming back in now, and trying to read more and find more stuff, and obviously liking the MCU film so much and trying to get backstories filled in and do all this different stuff. Tom Taylor and All New Wolverine, I'll always look back as the book that really, for me, defined what the Marvel Universe is, and the fact that it's nuts. There's a squirrel girl and there's aliens all the time, but that doesn't stop you from having a very personal conversation with somebody, but totally taking for granted the fantastical in a way I don't think, and I'm not trying to compare here, but a way that I feel DC doesn't. DC, it is still weird when Brainiac comes in and invades. It is still weird to see a crazy looking alien, Martian Manhunter, Jon Jones, walking down the street. Whereas with Marvel, it is very much, they're going to still try to sell that alien a hot dog and move on. And then,
what do you think makes that difference? Why do you think Marvel feels that different for you?
I think it's Probably exposure to a lot of
Okay.
it. I think that, for me, even looking back at comics back in the day, it always was the more grounded, more personal relationship that spoke louder than anything.
Yeah.
As again, and we'll get to this again with the Superman stuff. The Superman story I pitched, and then what's delayed me writing the Superman stuff is that once I started writing so much other stuff. But no matter it's all stuff. Maybe one day I'll be able to talk about or share, or maybe it'll go nowhere. It doesn't matter. But like, it's still being that, hey, here's somebody of immense power or whatever dealing with a normal person, and that's still the story.
Yeah.
It's not so much the punching and the fighting, right? Like that only goes so far, and it's not what it's about. And I feel like when you get to, hey, here's a Marvel comic, and I pick it up, and it's Galactus coming into the universe, and it's just like, this is hard for me to wrap my head around
like
in the same way.
Is it the,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
And
When it's just an infinite universe in the way it is, in the way that you'll play so much with 616 universe and Miles Morales' universe and Spider-Gwen's universe, and now granted most of these universes are the same, but you understand of like, that's when the stakes don't feel like they're there, that's when I lose it. I feel like for me with DC, especially when I come up, right, of it is like, cool, there are consequences and you can't go back. Granted, they always go back, but it was of, Superman died, that made these people, that leads to Coast City getting destroyed.
Yeah.
Hell goes crazy. Now there's one Green Lantern, and Kyle was my Green Lantern. You know what I mean? That's always the thing of, right now on this show, I talk all the time of like, they should really blow up continuity. It should be that if you want to tell a story in that continuity, in that universe, great. If you don't, you just want to tell your Supergirl being Supergirl story, great. It would make it so easy.
So that idea is what's behind DC Zoom and DC Inc.
Yeah.
None of them are in solid continuity.
Yeah, and I think
take the pieces that you want.
And that's the thing of like, I think we're definitely at a point where people can wrap their heads around that.
Yes.
And so, but it's that weird balance of, I think the reason the DC universe makes so much sense and clicks into place for me is the fact that I have this strong sense of continuity, and I do understand the progressions of Robin, and I do understand this, but where it is like, I'm 99% sure the Amazing Spider-Man is just following up from Slott's run, and Peter needs an apartment, and he's going back, he's working at the Daily Bugle as their science chief or whatever. But I can't definitively answer that when the person's like, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't feel like, I think, they're not de-aging him, but he's dealing with younger problems.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, because it is them shaking it up. And I haven't had the, real issue 1 drop or anything like that. I guess that's part of it.
Yeah.
But comics are always so weird to wrap your head around and try to do it.
Time and aging in comics is so weird, right? From the beginning, it's so weird.
What else do I want to run around here? Oh, I want to give a shout out to Action Comics Special number 1. It was another collection of short stories or whatever. There's one in there, Suprema Est Lex. I think it's obviously all Latin plays on or whatever. What I found fascinating about it is that it is not beat for beat, but it's totally Lex getting encouraged to run for the presidency.
Okay.
In the same way a lot of pundits claim Donald Trump got encouraged to run for the presidency, where he goes to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, gets ripped apart, and then basically leaves. And it rang so true, so on it, because I'd watched that Netflix 4-part special about Trump or whatever, and they have a whole thing about like when Obama tore him apart, and he basically left, and he was like, I'm seriously going to do this. Let's do this. And so this one for Lex, it was like, oh, wow. I see where all this is coming from.
That's weird, but they've done that storyline already, though, right?
But that's the thing of like,
he's going to go back.
In this continuity, did they, right? Because
that's true,
President Lex was in, it was before New 52.
It was before New 52.
Right,
okay,
so then
right.
It's there. But I don't think they're really going to do it. I just think it was probably, hey, you have 9 pages to write a story.
I was actually sitting... This is going to be so name droppy. I'm doing so much name droppiness, but I was actually sitting.
Kevin did the same thing when he was on it, and when he was co-hosting.
I was sitting in Dan DiDio's office when they announced Trump's nomination.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and I remember looking at him going, "Wow, you all did this.
Yeah, you called this conversation. They're repeating your plot lines. Yeah, no, it's
get royalties out of this.
That's a question I have for you too. Then, since you're here. Is this how, for something like this Superman special, action comic special, hey, we're doing a collection, a whole bunch of stuff. Is it that they like ring you and a writer and be like, we have to fill 6 pages, 9 pages. Can you tell a story?
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I've been with DC long enough to know what the regular way of doing things are. And I've only done one thing for an anthology. I did something for the hardcover Action 1000.
Sure.
Right. So they call it Paul Levitt's called me up. He was the one that put that together and called me up and asked me to do something for them.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's normal though.
I haven't gotten to you in the book yet. I saw your name on the dust jacket, but I'm getting there. I'm making my way through it. I followed up on what Tim said on last show and did Ultimate Wolverine vs. Hulk, which is old as hell, but it's a 6-issue series of
Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk.
Yeah, from the Ultimate Universe of that. Like basically, they hire Wolverine to go kill the Hulk. Yeah. It's an awesome read. Went super quick, and I totally missed it when it came out, so just check it out. Read through No Justice.
Okay, I haven't read that either.
No, it's fine. It's similar to what we were talking about, where gets a little too big for me. I'm like, all right, the source wall's broken. Here come these people to eat. And it's like, man, that I'm not about.
So it gets too far away from the human art stuff.
But then it's greatly paired with Amanda Waller and Green Arrow arguing.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed when they broke them up into teams of like, cool, you're the magic team and you're Entropy or whatever. And seeing, Brainiac and them all work together for a little bit and seeing, Superman have to talk to his villains on this level. Yeah. And they all have these cool costumes. It was like, all right, cool.
Yeah, the covers look awesome. And speaking of Green Arrow, though, I read the trade of Ben Piercy's run, the very first one. That was great.
From Rebirth?
From Rebirth.
So it's from Rebirth on?
From Rebirth on. It was just the first 6 issues.
I probably did the first 2 or 3. Okay. But I liked it so much, I've been downloading them all. They're all on my iPad.
Okay. You haven't gotten to them yet.
No.
He did a great job.
The art is beautiful too.
It's gorgeous.
I remember they were nailing who Ollie was as a character.
Yes.
I liked him being back with Black Canary. I like that relationship continuing.
Right?
Yeah, of course. And the goatee.
You got to have the goatee.
There's a few things. Go ahead and experiment, but come back. Yes, get back in the lane at some point of where we need to be for all this. Doomsday Clock 5 dropped last week. Jumped into that.
Okay.
This was the first one for Doomsday Clock where I was like, meh. You know what I mean? Of like, I feel like I know, and I'm not mad at them obviously, but like going to 2 months, every 2 months, like, oh, that's tough. And it was very much of me jumping into this book and then being like, wait, why are you doing this? Wait, and like, did I miss an issue? No, I didn't. Page through the old issue, go back one more. Oh, you're calling out stuff from issue 3 for issue 5, and I'm like, oh, that was
because it's so long
4 months ago. Like, this is a rough one. This is rough.
How do you feel about the Watchmen connection in general? You all must have talked about this here.
Yeah, but I love talking about comics. Don't worry about it. I at first was like, oh god, really? Can we just leave Watchmen alone? Yeah. And then when you get into it, like I thought the first 4 Doomsday Clocks were great, and and I'm not saying like this is ruined or anything, but it was like, oh wow, all right. I am very interested in all this, and like you read issue 1 of it?
I haven't. Okay, I'm really behind.
No. It does a great job of like telling it from the Watchmen side of it, or like what's happening in that universe, and then like the final couple pages are Superman like waking up from a nightmare, and Lois being like, "Well, what's wrong, Clark?" And he's like, "All right," and she's like, "Have you ever had a nightmare before?" And he's like, "I don't think so." And it's like, "All right, cool." Like I'm all in for what it's gonna be and where it's gonna go, but it's like. Like I need to read them all together, and then also I don't understand anymore what it means for the universe. Now again, I'm weird, right, in the way that period. But I'm weird in the way that video games, I know it's my job, so I know everything about it. I know every rumor, I know all the stuff. I'm on the forums. I'm doing this. Comics, I'm not usually. Comics are very much like if I see a tweet, I'll jump in and read about it. But I'm not like searching out that news. So I'm sure there's been a statement or an interview where Jeff has been like. No, it doesn't lead in anymore, because originally it was, and at the end of it, we're going to redefine the universe. But that was before Bendis, and that was before this, and Bendis is already stepping in and like redefining what Superman is, and I think that's awesome. I don't understand anymore if this is now just its own thing, because it's clearly not reflective of what's happening in the current books, because like the Gotham is super against Batman in Doomsday Clock. Like they have signs of like, ban the Bat and do this, and they don't want him to be around anymore. And it's this argument about vigilantes and this superhuman or Superman theory they have about America and all this stuff. It's all interesting stuff. It's just not reflective in the books we're currently going through, which is great, and I don't mind, but I'm just confused.
Yeah,
but not enough to where I care. I'm enjoying it as I read. If it turns into something, it turns into something. Gene.
Yes.
We've talked a lot. We haven't even gotten to required reading yet, so let's get there. Of course.
All right, let's do it.
Last time around on this show, Greg's Comic Book Club, the one and only Kevin Coelho. That's him over there, everybody. Got to pick required reading. He picked Descender, Volume 1. This is not Volume 1. That's Volume 1.
Right here.
By Jeff Lemire, Dustin Nguyen. And he said, I don't think you're going to like it, Greg. Kevin, you're wrong. I like this book quite a bit. This is a great book. I'm enjoying myself quite. I like it. I bought it without knowing I was going to like it. I always say support your local comic book shop. After the comic book club last time, I walked downstairs to our comic outpost experience and went in there. I'm like, hey, can I have Volume 1? They're like, well, we don't have this like super collected edition that has everything. And I was like, all right, go ahead. And so it was a big risk that I was spending my own money and maybe I wouldn't. But 6 issues is what Trade Volume 1 was, and I'm totally hooked. Had you read it before, Gene?
No, I had not. I mean, I'm a fan of this guy. I'm a fan of Jeff Lemire.
Yeah.
Both of them, actually. But his, he's doing Terrifics now, which I think is actually amazing.
Yeah.
And
it's terrific.
It's terrific. I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
I thought,
lean into it. Lean into it.
But I actually think that you can see the difference between the stuff that he has complete control over versus the stuff where he's writing inside of somebody else's universe.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Because Terrifics, I love it. It's one of my favorites right now. But this is sort of head and shoulders above that, I think.
Yeah.
Even.
So I didn't know much about it. Kevin, thank you for recommending it. Kevin's booting his mic up. He's back.
Yeah,
from
good
lunch.
job, Kevin.
We love you, Kevin.
Yeah, what's
Way
up,
to
dude?
recommend.
Yeah, no problem.
What do you what about Descender stands out to you, Kevin?
I mean, I know what I did wrong. Hold on.
Oh, he screwed something up. Kevin's fixing his microphone. Don't worry.
There we go. There was an echo. I understand what I did wrong. It was
Sure.
my bad. I just think it's a really cool and interesting story that like grabs you from the very beginning, and I think for the first volume, I can't. It's been a long time.
Yeah,
since
I know.
I've
This is
actually
always the
read
hard
it.
part of like, hey, I've read a million issues of this.
But you don't get a lot of answers for a while. But like it makes you want to know more about the world, and they give you a lot more about the world. Not necessarily you don't know where things are gonna go just yet.
Yeah.
You will in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a great story. The art is phenomenal.
The art is, if you want to kick it over to Skycam there, I can do it for some. Of course, this is required reading. You all should have read it. I don't know how much clearer I have to be. But yeah, the art I love so much. Like that was the thing when Kevin showed it to me on that gorgeous iPad. That if any moment you want to lose, and give it to me. Like the art is what stood out to it, and so I was like super into that. But then getting the story, it does do the thing I was worried about of like, all right, cool, we're in space, like a bunch of made up crazy aliens. Am I gonna enjoy this or whatever? But they are grounded and they don't introduce too many, and it is about relationships. And for me, and granted, we're in the middle of Westworld, we're in the middle of Detroit Become Human, all these games about AI and like their feelings and personality. Tim 21, I totally connect with, and in the story as you see him continue to grow alongside Andy, you see him start to take Andy's mom as his mom, to see his motivations based on family and love that he has for these people. I was like obviously in his corner about it.
Yeah. I mean that was all in chapter 2, right? I thought chapter 2 was amazingly well done.
Yeah.
Usually when you go back and forth like that, it can feel kind of cheesy.
Right.
But it totally felt right for this.
Yeah.
I was really, really impressed with that.
Yeah, and like I think the cast of characters they surround him with, Tim 21 and the adventure they're on is great. Of course, we have bounty hunters out there. It's one of those I've read ahead, so I don't want to spoil too much. I put my comic book girl 19 Watchmen Club thing in there to stop.
So I have a question for you about the art. There's a difference between art that's readable and art that's amazing to look at, right?
Yeah.
So and there's art that does both, but only does one versus the other. So this is obviously amazing to look at. Do you think it's also easy to read?
Okay, so you're saying readable in terms of I know what's happening in the frames and stuff?
Yes, or it's easy to follow. So there's a theory that art, like comic book art, works best when you have a black outline, because that black outline is like most of the stuff that we read is black ink on white paper, right?
Yeah.
So if you have that black outline, it actually makes your pictures readable. And he doesn't. He like completely. I mean, this is sort of Alex Ross-ish.
Yeah, well, the whole thing looks like a watercolor.
Yes.
Right? You page through and it looks like a watercolor painting.
Yes, but do you feel like it's still readable?
I do.
It's still readable. Okay.
Because I feel like, for the most part, Kevin, you go Skycam again? Even as I just page through at random, I feel like it's simple enough. Right? Here it is black, white, and then this gray in there. Again, white outlines here when he's in weird-ass robot heaven that I want to know a lot more about, Kevin. It's over there. But I mean, like, it's detailed and pretty, and I think it's simplistic enough. Not in a negative sense, but in a way that like, okay,
in a
cool.
readable sense.
Yeah,
In a
exactly.
readable sense.
Do you?
Yeah, I was actually, I got to tell you, when I flipped through it, I was a little bit worried about it.
Sure.
Because I do think there are some books out there that are just gorgeous to look at, but when you read it, it's just hard to get into it.
Yeah.
You know? And I was a little bit worried when I flipped through, but I do think that the way he uses blacks helps. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
And the fact that his characters are so distinctive. I think both of those things allow this to hit both of those notes, you know?
We, of course,
Readable
invite you,
and good to look at,
the viewer, to go to patreon.com/kindoffunny, support us at the level where you can ask and be part of the show and submit your reviews and all that jazz. Jericho did, and he starts where we're talking. In one of the past episodes, we had the question, if the art of a comic book can make you stop reading it, I wonder whether people would think the same here because it's very unique in style and looks like concept art at sometimes. There are panels where this really works for me and I love it, the flashbacks. But then there are some where it doesn't give me enough detail to get a closer look at things. Especially with books on Comixology where you get the panel by panel view. It's easy to do, but if the art is a bit more abstract than what I usually see, I kind of get disappointed. So yeah, he's in the camp that I think got a little left behind.
I mean,
by
it's a brave choice to go watercolor on a comic, man.
Sure. Yeah.
I have you like watercolor is one of the hardest things to scan. So I bet my guess is that the originals on these just look amazing. I mean, this already looks amazing. This already looks amazing. But I would love to see the originals.
Yeah. Jericho went on to say, onto the story, the premise is good. I like the near-apocalyptic scenery and the fact that the robots are of high value. I can see this might not be a story for Greg, and I'm not sharing the same feeling about sci-fi stories, but this time it felt a bit weird to have all these made-up planet moons, especially in the start. Granted, on the last page, you get some various info and da-da-da-da. Yeah, the glossaries and all that helped, but I thought the fact that we were returning the same planets made it easier, where we were just ping-ponging around and not ever stopping. Like, we kept staying at the same place. We learned, the ruler.
I did go back though. Like in my version, I didn't get the glossary until the very end. Is it earlier in yours?
No.
Okay, it's at the very
here.
back.
You got the whole thing here.
So
right
I did after I saw that, I did go back.
Yeah.
I did kind of wish that I had that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just because I think you kind of need it's sort of like a wide shot before you dive into a scene.
Sure. Yeah. I wonder how your mind works differently. You know what I mean? If like when you read a comic page, do you sit there and see the script too? Like, do you see like how they're pitching this panel, how they're describing
I gotta say, when I read comics now, I do find myself trying to deconstruct it, even when I don't want to.
Interesting.
Even when I just want to follow the comic.
Yeah.
I still am thinking about how they put it together.
Yeah. Jericho signed off. He said a lot more, obviously, as you all do, but he says thumbs up 45 degrees for Descender. So not a full thumbs up, but he's giving it 45 degrees. He's like, all in all, I liked it, but the pure amount of characters, factions, locales make the book hard for me to follow. I understand that. There are definitely sections I had to go back and reread. You want to keep up with stuff.
That goes back to me wanting this the atlas of the core planets of the United Galactic Council in the beginning.
Yeah.
I thought that would have helped me personally.
Jay chimed in and says, thanks to Big Kev Dog for recommending this.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. The overarching theme of AI self-awareness made me think of Westworld and is the reason I finished it in 2 sittings. Chapter 2 was my favorite. I really enjoyed the back and forth sequences between present day running from the scrappers and the past memories and SEPA. The upload in progress ticker on the bottom right corner in red was an excellent touch as well.
All of it was crazy awesome.
Yeah.
That chapter was so well done.
Chapter 5 and the fighting pits, a tale as old as time. Thor Ragnarok, anybody? Dr. Kwan outing himself as a fraud in chapter 6 was an unexpected twist. Overall, I'm very interested in the series and we'll come back to it once it concludes.
So did you have a favorite character?
Yeah, Tim 21. It was just up. I know it's boring, but and then I'm trying to page through because again, I don't think it happens in this issue. There's a thing coming up of a character that I thought was even better, but I don't want to spoil anything in case I'm wrong because I want you to keep reading. I'm going to keep reading. I don't want to blow anything out there. But yeah, I thought for me it was Tim. You?
I actually was drawn to Driller. I feel
oh my god, Driller's awesome.
I want him to. I feel like they're setting him up to be simple, but he's not.
Did you get the backstory?
I don't think I got.
I don't think you get it in the first volume.
No. I don't think I got.
He just is doing the whole killer's a real or Driller's a real killer or whatever over and over again. Yeah. And I love him and Yappy Bot. Like he's just like, why is Yappy Bot here?
Yeah, he feels like he's a robot with PTSD. That's the feeling I get. Okay.
No, I got that. I can do that. All right. Kevin's over there being Kevin. What do you got, Kev?
Keep reading it, man.
I got a lot more to go.
It comes out slow though.
Really?
Does it?
But that's the thing is now that it's collected, you know what I mean? And not to mention it's what, I think I was looking today just to rebrief myself. I saw on Wikipedia, I think it's supposed to only be 24 to 30 issues.
Total?
Yeah. What the original idea, I'm sure it could go longer if he wants to go longer or whatever, but that's what it says on Wikipedia. Wikipedia's never lied to me.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Where are we at now? Do you know, Kev, roughly?
I want to say issue 24-ish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if they're going 30, they're getting towards the end.
Yeah. It definitely feels like they're getting towards the end.
Oh, it does.
In a great way.
Okay.
Boy.
Okay, that's awesome.
Mario says that Dustin Nguyen's art is fantastic as always. I usually really enjoy his unique watercolor style, and I especially enjoy the unfinished pencil approaches in this series. It may be jarring to new readers that don't know what to expect, but the variety is nice for people who have been following comics as long as I have. I'm not the biggest Lemire fan, but he always does a great job of having the right amount of weight in his stories, and that's definitely the case here.
I agree. Dustin Nguyen did the those Diary of a Wimpy Kid style books for DC.
Oh,
have you seen those?
I saw covers for them.
If you have kids in your life, they're great.
Okay.
They're awesome.
Lucas says, yeah, the art also really started to grow on me the more I read it. So the more as people jumped into it.
Yeah, same thing. Like I was worried. When I flipped through. But even like I think he took that into account even in the way he designed Driller.
Yeah.
It's high contrast and he has this real distinct shape. So it just makes it a little bit easier to read than it would be otherwise.
Oh wait, Kevin's doing something. Kevin's got breaking news, it looks like. Kevin Coelho from the kindafunny.com press pool. What do you have from?
It looks like they're on December number 31.
Oh, okay.
And
So you're saying
wow.
Wikipedia lied to me.
Yeah.
So they've gone past.
Maybe I made that up. Hold on. Let's not just throw it all out the bus here.
But you're reading it as issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But
you're straight. You're like all caught up.
No, I think I'm at tops like 28.
Okay.
So I'm behind, which is exciting. Very exciting.
Hold on.
And they got dates on it too, which is surprising on like the 31 and 32, June 27th and July 25th.
Announced at San Diego Comic-Con 2014, the ongoing series through his adventures in space and is envisioned to run between 24 and 40 issues.
Oh, okay.
But that's something you said at Comic-Con in 2014.
But if
somebody
40,
just bought
though,
the rights too for the story, you're gonna keep making it.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on now. All you artists sell out immediately. Just come on now.
I'm trying to sell out.
No one's coming. I don't know what the problem is.
I really hope it does end though.
Oh yeah, totally.
This could be a great story with a beginning, finish in it.
Right.
Middle in it.
Yeah. Kayla gets the final word and says she's 100% going to continue this series. So yeah, Descender, great.
Me too.
Yeah,
I
me
really
too.
liked it.
I for sure want to finish off my book here and keep going. But yeah, I liked it a lot. Good job, Kevin. Now, Gene.
All right.
This is where it gets tough. You're the guest this time. You
Okay.
get to pick required reading for the next month.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be in any particular genre.
No.
Doesn't necessarily. Okay.
You can do whatever you want.
Okay, so
recommend your own book. Sell
the
something.
recommendation I have is Be Prepared by Vera Brosgol. It's a middle grade book, and it's amazing. It's an autobiographical graphic novel.
Huh. Okay.
Do you know Vera Brosgol's stuff?
I don't. I'm bringing it up
So she did
right
a
now.
book called
I like the art a lot.
Anya's Ghost,
Okay.
and she used to be an animator. She worked on Coraline.
Okay.
She's awesome. So she's actually the child of immigrants. Her parents are immigrants from Russia, and as a kid, they sent her to Russian summer camp. Like a girl summer camp, right? And it was just like any other summer camp, except that every now and then they'd have these elements where it was about preparing for a possible American-Russian war.
Oh.
And if that happened, all the girls in the summer camp would have to fight for Russia. So they'd sing songs about this, and then they go and they'd make popsicle stick art. So it's amazing. It's an amazing.
All right,
book.
that sounds awesome.
It's
Be
about
prepared.
friendship, and it's about like the weird ways in which politics can play into the life of a kid. It's awesome. Yeah,
Done.
and the art is amazing.
All right, cool. This is another one I get to. What I like a lot about this show is that I get to do it, and then I get to go downstairs and see if it's just there. It's a reason to go to the comic shop. I like that a lot. There you go. Be Prepared by Vera Brosgol. Vera Brosgol. It's there. I'm looking at it on Amazon right now. You can get it there. Hardcover, paperback, Kindle. I'm gonna go down and support your local comic shop, as I always say. Remember, required reading. You have 1 month to read it. Remember that we're going to put up, if you don't want to copy this all down, if you're listening somewhere, remember over on patreon.com/kindafunny, the pull list is up along with the required reading post. Pull list shows you everything we're going to try to read for that month that's on there. It'll tell you about guests. It'll tell you about the rest of the stuff. And then the $15 one is where you ask questions, where it's the participation thread, where there's more stuff in there for you. Gene? Next section on this show is called the update on Superman.
All right.
Which is the comic thing I'm done.
All right.
Last time around, I was complaining about I'm getting busy, all these things happening, a lot of video games, jobs, life. And Kevin gave me a deadline of that next comic book club. I have to have issue 1 of my 5-issue thing right now written.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, so can I ask about like script format and all that? Or
Sure.
What script format are you using?
I'm not doing Marvel style. I'm doing I feel like
full script.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
so if you're not familiar, and I've told you already, read and this is before he picked up. I'm not just a Bendis fanboy because of the Superman stuff, but Words for Pictures by Brian Michael Bendis was such a great read for me in terms of like, I want to write a comic. How do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do it? And like jumping in there, and Marvel style being just like you just write. And like,
you
here
write
it
a plot.
is. Yeah,
and then you set it, and the artist figures it out.
Exactly, which
Yeah.
I'd be totally down for if I knew the. I feel like since this is just getting released into a vacuum of like, I made this thing, whatever.
No, I think your first time you ought to do a full script.
Exactly.
It makes you think about things that you ought to think about.
And man, there's a lot to think about because
there's
I
a
know
lot to think
the
about.
dialogue is so easy. The dialogue's been so easy to write and put there and everything else, and then it's like now I'm like
it's everything else.
I'm doodling pages of like how would this panel look and like how do I make it go the way I want it to go.
So you're thumbnailing. You're like doing little thumbnail sketches.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Just because because I feel like even now it's like what I found most liberating about the book in this project when I started it was reading the Bendis book and him being like, "There's no right way to do this."
No, there's
so like
no right
because
way.
I was like gonna go in and look for a glossary of like they call this a long box or this is a 3/4 box, and it's like I guess to just jot it down and be like, half the top page, this, that, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Of like just
there's
do
no
that,
right way.
set it all up, and so I feel. I've been, since this happened, I've had a lot of conversations since I started saying I wanted to do this. And so I've been talking to people about other stuff, and it's led to me start writing up other pitches and other things and other like things for established characters, my own worlds and all this jazz. And I found it so interesting that I was talking about like, maybe I should do something shorter. And I was like, did this like, let's try to do an 8-page, like what would go at the back of an annual or something like that or whatever. And when I did that one was so simple. Because it's so short, whereas this one I'm trying to think of a actual plot arc and like moments that are happening there to keep it going and like all this stuff. I have been writing on issue 1. I have been working on it, so it will, Kevin, be there. I'm gonna remember you gave me the deadline next time around. Okay, cool. Next time, okay. We're gonna have it.
Wait, so did you outline the whole thing, like all 5 issues, or
Yes.
just diving into one? Okay.
No. Like I have it. So what I did is when we came back from, so this is a lot for you to take in. Last year, we came back from Christmas, New Year's break. Nick Scarpino was like, my New Year's resolution, we're going to do a New Year's resolution topic on the show. My New Year's resolution, Nick's was to do stand-up comedy. Okay. And you jump to where we are right now, and Nick does stand-up comedy every other night. Like, he's out there trying to make this dream happen. He's done a whole bunch of performances. We've done it with him and all this jazz. It's awesome. And so this year was like, man, Nick was able to do this. I've always talked about it. I finally have an idea for what my Superman story is. I gave a rough pitch and then evolved it even from what the podcast was. And so, now I have a 5-issue thing. Okay. And it's one of those, I think when I get further into it, we'll probably get to that 6th issue because I think that makes more sense in my head. Not that any of this matters for something that I don't know the characters for. I'm never going to do anything.
You don't know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen.
I've already pitched the whole thing. Jim Lee was like, get out of here.
You don't know. You don't know.
I haven't pitched DC.
Things change.
I know. So it's like one of those, but even with the 8-page thing, which was a simpler thing of like, cool, give me this one story beat and let's expand on that. That was when it was like, all right, cool, 8 pages. And I'm like, this is like 12. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I need more than this. I thought I could do this in 8. I need to go this far and stuff. Yeah. So it's awesome. It's fascinating. It's interesting. I'm excited to just get it done.
That's great. So
I feel like I talk a lot about it.
Where are the sticking points that you found?
I talk a lot about it. I get distracted, I think, because there's always like another cool opportunity. There's another pitch. There's another, what if I did this? You know what I mean? Like, and so I think even then it was like, I felt for the Superman one in particular that I just felt like nobody was doing it at the time, because you've done a great job, but nobody was doing it at the time in like December, wasn't doing what I wanted. And so I was going to do it myself kind of thing. And then even since then, so many people have done it well, and I'm not in this. What I should have done is I should have just gone. I should have turned everything off when I had like the mind lightning kind of thing and gone and done it. Because now it is like, well, I still got a month before the next issue, and I got to do this, and we're going to E3, and it's this, that, and the other. It's like, what I need to do is, I really need to just like, when my wife's not in town, just take, go get you turn everything off in the house and just sit there and do it, just to make sure I get that done. Because I keep jumping around to other things. Because I feel like I had always thought about it, but never opened the door. And now that I put I open the door a crack, like it's just a flood of like, I'll be writing. I have this folder in Google Drive that's just comics. And it's just all these different ideas, and like some are super fleshed out, some aren't, some aren't.
Wait, so are you thinking about going to a different idea now?
Or no. The Superman thing's on lock. I just need to do it. But then it's like, well, what if I did this 8-page thing and just put that on Twitter? And it's like, well, that would be quicker to do than the Superman comic, so why not do that? And that's why last time around, Kevin was like, well, no, just stop being a bitch and write issue 1. Because I want to write all the issues. Just want to write all the issues and put them out. And Kevin's like, no, just do the first issue and keep going.
There's a great book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, who's a screenwriter, and I suggest that to anyone who's writing.
Okay.
Because he calls it the resistance. So when you want to do something artistic, you'll always hit this. He thinks of it as almost like a spiritual force that doesn't want you to continue.
Oh, okay.
And it presents itself as like distractions and like better ideas and all this kind of stuff. And the key to becoming a successful artist is being able to fight through that resistance.
Interesting.
It's really good. Amazing book.
Okay. I will pick that up as well.
Yeah.
And that'll be my distraction for now. Nah, I'm kidding, man. Well, we've gone a while already. You're just too interesting, Gene, as always. Let's see. Where do I want to go with questions? Because now we're into big questions, of course.
All
one
right.
of the benefits you're able to put up there. Jericho has this. Comic books are not a cheap form of entertainment, as you know. Has it ever been a problem for you in the past or now? I love everything in physical form, music, games, comics, books. But I also try to be very parsimonious with my money. I learned, he puts in parentheses, I learned that word from none other than Gary Whitta. Thank you. Gary Whitta, of course, on one of our shows. Wrote Row One, right in this Last Jedi thing, all right. So the cheapest version of a release has to do it for me. With comics, the price differences are pretty enormous. Example, all new Wolverine, Volume 6 pre-order digital is $7.99 in euros, and then physical is $13.49 at Amazon, and it continues on like that. Now that is a problem. What do you think? Is it worth paying so much, or should I not bother buying physical releases, as it seems to be the beginning of the end of comic books in a physical form anyway? Or are we even farther from that phase, or aren't we? So 2 questions, I guess. Number 1, has it ever been a problem, the price of comics for you, Gene?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I think for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is comics were American monthly comics were meant to be cheap entertainment.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like $4, I get it.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot. That's
the
a lot
work
to
that goes
pay.
in, the art that goes in. I get why I need to pay this much. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I could totally see, like, nowadays the readership of the monthly comic book is so much older than it used to be, and I think price point has a part to play in that.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Like for a kid, $4 for 20 pages is a lot to pay.
Well, that's always the argument I get when I talk about comics with friends in general who like the Marvel movies but don't read. And I'm like, I've read this. Oh, I wish, but I'm not gonna pay $4 or something I'm through in 15 minutes. And it's like, well, I get that, but then it's like, when I read a comic, I try to find myself going back, right, to look at the panels again and look at the art and take it at a different pace.
Yeah, and also I would suggest like trading them, which is something that comics used to be. Like, people used to trade comics. You would buy an issue and you would trade with your friends.
Yeah,
I think that's a great way to go. But I also do think, like, he's talking about the digital versus the physical, and they've done actual studies about this. When you read physically, when you read on a page, you remember what you read way better. So the extra money that you're paying for paper is actually not for nothing.
Yeah.
It's actually for a better interface with your own brain.
Yeah, for me, on the first part, has it ever been a problem for me? Of course, I've talked about it in passing, but like, when I was growing up reading comics, it was very much that my father, who was a collector, not of comics, but collector of random ass shit. He has this weird Coca-Cola memorabilia collection. He
sounds like an interesting dude.
My dad's awesome. But it was definitely he saw one of his passions in collecting in me with comics. So parents were there to bankroll it. It was a fun hobby. It was a way for me and my father to connect. I drag him to Wizard World or Chicago Comic Con that became Wizard World all 3 days, and he would just wander behind me while I had like a note card checking things off and doing. Oh, it was great. Yeah. But it's like now when I run into a dad and a kid at PAX or like any video game convention, I'm like, do you like video games, Dad? And the dad's like, no. I'm like, thank you so much for doing this. He'll understand one day. She'll understand one day how important this was. But once I got a car and then, stopped Wednesday, Dad didn't pick me up from school to go to the gym shop anymore. It became that thing where it fell by the wayside. And then when I went to college and I wanted to do it, I was broke.
It's because of money.
So I went to the MU bookstore at Mizzou and would just sit there and read it. And that's how, like, when I'm always like, Tim, what Spider-Man stuff do I need to read? He's like, oh, did you ever read the Ezekiel stuff? I'm like, yeah, I totally did. Yeah. Standing there, just reading it and then putting it back on the shelf of like, well, this is how I'll keep up with comics.
Well, nowadays, like, your average local library has a great graphic novel section.
That's a great point too. Yeah.
So that's another way to keep up with physical stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot. And I think for a lot of people, the graphic novel is a cheaper and more eye-pleasing way. Like even for me, where it's like I read every one of the Walking Dead's as they come out on my iPad, but then I make sure I still buy the volume because I came that far. I got to keep having the volume of my trade paperback.
I mean, I really hope that the industry figures out a way to present serialized content in printed format, regular. Because I just think, as somebody who grew up reading it, as somebody who's now writing it, I think there's a uniqueness to the serialized format that you can't get when you're writing directly for the graphic novel. And I hope that comics doesn't lose that. But I do think that I don't know. Something's got to change. We got to figure something out.
And that's the thing, is that nobody has a solution. And that's what's terrifying. You know what I mean? I live out in the Sunset. There's a shop out there, Amazing Fantasy. And they're tearing up the road in front of it. And it was funny. Geez. I was reading the newspaper. This is like a year ago now. But they're like, this road's going to be getting torn up for because it's a really long road. They're like, it's going to get torn up for 3 years or whatever. And they went down the shops talking and it's going to be tough for us, blah, blah, blah. And the Amazing Fantasy guy's like, we're dead. That was a quote, we're dead. If this stops foot traffic the way we think it is, it's not going to work. And that's why, you recommend a book, I'll totally go downstairs and buy it rather than just buy it onto the... And I read the majority of my stuff on the iPad. But it's also, like I talked about last week, it's because we're lucky enough that, we're on mailing, or DC just gives you everything, so we can talk about it, right? And then we get PDFs from Image, and then I got Marvel codes if I want. Yeah, Kevin.
I think at the end of last show, you were like, I'm going to go right now.
I'm pretty sure I always say, just remind me afterwards. I was like, it never
No, you stood up and you're like,
every fucking day you run back there and tell me something worthless about it. I can do it if you just tell me.
You yelled it in my eyes. I'm doing it right now. And you walked away.
I didn't yell it in your eyes. I was doing it right now.
Yeah, you did. I got spit in eyeballs.
You always have spit in. You know what? We're done with this. We're done.
That's the superpower if you're able to spit in his eyeball from here. You should TM that. Oh, okay. I gotcha.
I like how you won't even let me be impressive in that little window. Let's check in for what people are reading and what we should be reading. Thank you, of course, everybody over at patreon.com/kindafunny for being part of the show. Jay says he's been reading Batman Volume 4, The War of Jokes and Riddles by Tom King, of course, and Mike Janin. What more can I say? He says, read this cover to cover in one evening. Script, art, tension, splash pages. Use whatever superlative you like. It is amazing. As we said, Tom King's great. And even now with the Batman stuff he's writing, this was like a prequel to all that. Now we're, in the Catwoman Batman marriage stuff, or leading up to the wedding, July 4th. Can't wait. You're seeing that stuff come up. There was a whole Poison Ivy arc that involved it. He's also reading The Mighty Thor Volume 3. Felt like there was a lull in this one, but I still love this run. Excited to start Volume 4, and I'll be getting the final volume when it drops. He also did Super Sons Volume 2, Planet of the Capes by Peter Tomasi and George Jimenez. And I love Super Sons.
Peter Tomasi is amazing.
Right? So really good. All the stuff's so good. He says, I love George Jimenez's art. I always get that feel-good feeling when I read this series.
So I have a plug. If you're into Peter Tomasi, he also has a book about the creation of the Brooklyn Bridge. I think it's called The Bridge.
Oh, right?
It's a OGN, an original graphic novel. Okay. I think it's out from Dark Horse. I want to say Dark Horse. Okay. But it's great. It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, you already burned your required reading, but now you can check that out too. Luca's reading Red Hood and the Outlaws Rebirth. Super fun series. The chemistry between Jason, Artemis, and Bizarro really makes for a compelling team with very smart, snappy dialogue. It hits the perfect balance of tone and helps sell the crazy adventures the team goes on while still allowing for more grounded character development. I've heard a lot of good things about Red Hood and the Outlaws, and I have not checked it out.
I have not checked that out either.
Yeah,
Same thing. I've heard tons of good things.
And then Kayla closes out and says, You Are Deadpool by Al Ewing. This book is fucking awesome. So it's not a typical comic book. It's an interactive narrative / RPG story in the vein of Choose Your Own Adventure, but with dice. You pick weapons to carry with you and roll the dice to fight enemies.
This is a monthly book?
I don't know. This can't be right. No, it is. Hold on a second.
Wow,
what?
Wait.
You pick weapons to carry with you and roll a die to fight enemies. You gain scores you keep track of that determines what book you continue on to. There's 5 issues that release every week released every week in May.
What?
It's something I have never experienced in a comic book, and it's really funny to boot. Highly recommend.
Wait, you roll dice and that determines what issue you buy next?
Apparently.
That's amazing.
So it's a typical comic book.
How come I haven't heard of this?
So it's not a typical comic book. It's an interactive narrative / RPG story in the vein of Choose Your Own Adventure, but with dice. You pick weapons to carry with you and roll a dice to fight enemies. And you gain scores you keep track of that determine what book you continue on to.
You guys should totally do this on the show.
Agreed.
Roll dice on the show.
Huh.
That's such a great idea.
That's amazing. Kayla or Kala. I can never. Gala. I would say Kala then. Call in your next month, or even in the posting on this. Just tell me how to say it. Spell it out for me. I'm sorry. I'm stupid.
That's right.
Oh, then of course, Callous won for Plastic Man by Gail Simone. Can't wait. Gene.
I'm a huge fan of Plastic Man. I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah. That was it. That was issue 5. You did
awesome.
It. You made it to the end.
Thank you.
No, thank you for coming by.
It was a pleasure. It was an honor and pleasure to be
You
part
know
of
you're
issue
welcome
5.
here anytime. Whenever we can, I'll waste your time, not just on a 3-year basis, but on as much as I can get you in here.
No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
No
Greg.
problem. Everybody, hold on, I'll bring them up. Check out New Superman. It's about to end, so you have no excuse anymore if you don't like ongoings. You can just jump in there and get it. Are you going to kill him? Is that how it ends?
No, we're not killing him.
Good.
We're not killing him.
I want him to stick
He
around
will
some more.
still be alive.
Cool. When can people look for your Zoom stuff?
It's we're hoping next year. Yeah, working on it right now. We're hoping next year.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Greg's Comic Book Club issue 5. Remember, it's a product of patreon.com/kindafunny. For just $1, you get to watch each and every episode or listen. They're put up as MP3s as well. You can also up your pledge and get to ask questions and put your own reviews in and be part of the show, regardless of what you give us. Thank you so much for supporting us on patreon.com/kindafunny. If somehow you found this without supporting us on patreon.com/kindafunny, you now owe me $1. And I expect you to go to Patreon. I'm kidding. It'd be great if you did, though. You know what I'm saying? Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, it's been our pleasure to serve you.